We'll be hearing from the two MVPs of the AFREECA FREECS, but we're going to break down how the game went first. So we got the results here. Lots of unexciting Drakes, but AFREECA really able to capitalize on a lot of the macro mistakes that KONGDOO still has to shore up in order for them to really compete with the better teams in this league.
I'm actually really glad you brought up the Drakes, because now that I think about it, I don't think we've seen a single Mountain Drake
Nope.
in both series today.
Yeah. Not a single one.
You know, who knows? Maybe it might be one of those situations where the new patch deleted the Mountain Drake off the game. Nobody knows yet.
Nobody realized yet.
Yeah, 3 days later, somebody's like, hey, something's off.
Yeah.
But really, looking at the damage chart, KURO with another great performance with that Corki, and ROACH coming out and taking more of a carry role in this game. The damage definitely adds up to it, but again, KONGDOO Monster looking a little bit disoriented in the later stages of the game.
Yeah, they really need to, I don't know, talk about it more, figure out what they're doing wrong.
If you look at teams, well, let's look at the MVP first.
It's going to be KRAMER. He landed a lot of big Ash arrows. He missed a couple, but the majority of them were on point, and they really helped to propel AFREECA into a pretty good spot in the mid-game.
A real soul chaser, I think. But going back to my earlier point, I wondered if the presence of a veteran player on the roster, you know, AFREECA, KURO winning the MVP here, he's an LCK champion. Maybe that experience comes up huge, and KONGDOO Monster maybe lacking some of that experience. But moving on to that interview, KURO says he's very happy with the win, but a little bit disappointed because not a lot of changes in the standings, even with today's victory.
Waving to a fan in the process.
And KRAMER saying he felt really great landing all those Ash arrows in the second set. Also gave him a lot of confidence and really enjoyed playing with that kind of confidence. So KRAMER being asked, you know, what's the difference between the first set and the second set? And KRAMER says, basically after the first set, we kind of shared feedback and said, he said to himself, maybe I should be a little bit more calm and collected when I go for those arrows, and he says it feels like it worked out well. So they also had a 1-week break, and they're asking, you know, how did the players spend that time while IEM was on? And KURO says, well, it might have been a 1-week break, but for us, it was practice from hell. And to elaborate, the practice week from hell was mainly spent on, you know, team games, probably scrims, right? And KURO, speaking on MOWGLI, MOWGLI being a rookie player, he tends to get really nervous. So KURO says he's really happy he played well today. And KRAMER also saying, again, as a rookie player, MOWGLI tends to get really nervous, but winning always gives them a lot of confidence, and he's looking forward to how MOWGLI is going to play with even more confidence being built up as they move forward. Now KRAMER, speaking on his MVP, says, Well, I'm not too happy because I didn't do a lot of damage. I feel like all I did was hit those arrows. And he personally prefers to do a lot of damage to get the MVPs. And speaking of his head coach as well, because the head coach did mention that he wants to give KRAMER an MVP. He wants to see KRAMER having a bigger impact on the game. KRAMER basically saying the head coach gave him a lot of good words and advised him to be more productive in the games. So now we're going to take a look at KURO's Cassiopeia highlights from set 1. And KRAMER being asked, he did feature in that highlight a bit, starting it off with the Ash Arrow, and KRAMER saying he basically kind of went for that one, but it ended up hitting. So it was a great setup for KURO to capitalize on. And KRAMER being asked about his Cassiopeia ultimate use, and basically says he feels like the opponent maybe slipped up today because all you have to avoid from Cassiopeia is getting getting the W dumped on you. And just elaborating on the set overall, KRAMER says they tried to go for a pick on Tahm Kench, which they shouldn't have done, and then they ended up losing their bottom lane, which complicated the set for a lot of reasons after that.
Poor soul.
KRAMER being asked, what was it like in this moment? And basically said it was great. So speaking more on the match, the AFREECA Freaks definitely talked about how things were going, and they decided they could probably win in the late game, so they decided to give up the Baron in some places. And speaking more on the Baron secure, I believe some of the teammates basically said it was over, we can't get it. So finally moving forward, any words of determination or messages to the fans? KRAMER says we're currently 4 wins and 5 losses, but they're going to work harder in the second round to make sure that they have more wins. And KRAMER following the same kind of message, saying they're going to practice really hard and make sure that they have more wins than losses in the second round. And that's it for the MVP interview.
Yeah, so just going over what happened today, it was a 1-2, Longju taking the win over MVP. And then, of course, the one we just had, AFREECA taking out KONGDOO Monster 2-0.
I think the final message today is no mountain drakes were harmed in the making of this show because they never showed up.
Yeah, they survived, so there should be standings here. And let's take a look. SKT and KT up at top. Longju now 6-3, really solidifying themselves as the best of the middle of the pack. Samsung is up with them as well. MVP with their loss goes to 5v4, 5-4. AFREECA 4-5, and KONGDOO still sadly down there at 1-8.